Jack Turner cursed his rotten luck as he crawled from the smoking wreckage of the Reliable, a ship named sarcastically by whichever budget-cutting bureaucrat thought humor compensated for quality engineering. He dusted himself off, muttering bitterly, "Of all the places in this entire galaxy to crash, I managed to pick the planet of the warrior women allergic to testosterone." Just as Jack finished his self-pitying complaint, he heard heavy footsteps rapidly approaching. Glancing up, his eyes widened as 3 towering female warriors strode confidently toward him, their armor barely concealing their powerfully sculpted physiques. He tried to look intimidated rather than intrigued, failing spectacularly as his eyes lingered slightly longer than decorum permitted. "You male creature!" boomed the tallest warrior, her deep voice echoing with authority. "You've trespassed onto Zelvara. Explain yourself immediately!" Jack raised his hands slowly, offering an apologetic half-smile. "Sorry about the landing. You ladies wouldn't happen to have a spare hyperdrive lying around, would you?" The warriors exchanged confused glances, uncertain whether his tone was insulting or humorous. The leader stepped closer, examining him intensely. Jack chuckled nervously. "If you're checking me out, I gotta warn you, I bruise easy." She ignored his comment, instead grabbing him by the arm firmly but carefully. Jack flinched slightly, jokingly adding, "Careful there, this specimen is more delicate than advertised." As they escorted him into a brightly lit room filled with bizarre alien instruments, Jack nervously eyed what appeared to be disturbingly suggestive probes and restraints. "Hey, just so we're clear," he said weakly, "my safe word is banana." The warrior who had initially spoken narrowed her eyes slightly, replying seriously, "We do not consume bananas here." Jack blinked. "No, never mind." Suddenly, another female entered the room, her dark uniform marked by several gleaming badges indicating rank. She radiated command and power, yet her eyes studied Jack curiously. "I am Commander Zilla," she announced sharply, her voice cold but oddly fascinated. "I oversee scientific research. Your arrival is an opportunity we cannot overlook." "Scientific research?" Jack echoed skeptically, noting her eyes drifting down his body. "Sure feels more like an opportunity to give me an alien physical I never scheduled." Zilla stepped forward, clearly trying to appear indifferent, though her cheeks took on an oddly purplish hue, perhaps a blush. She began touching his chest, arms, and shoulders slowly and methodically, murmuring thoughtfully, "Interesting muscle density." Jack raised an eyebrow, uncomfortable but intrigued. "Commander, your scientific curiosity seems a bit hands-on. Is this standard alien hospitality, or am I just lucky?" Zilla flinched at his words, quickly stepping back and attempting to hide her embarrassment behind a facade of cold professionalism. "Your insinuations are primitive. Zelvarians despise males. Our analysis is purely objective." Jack snorted softly. "Objective? You've touched more of me in 5 minutes than my ex did in 2 years. The other warriors visibly struggled to suppress laughter. Zilla shot them a withering glare before turning sharply back toward Jack. She attempted to recover her composure, stating stiffly, "Your physiology intrigues us. It is critical we test your stamina and endurance." Jack smirked openly now, unable to resist the opportunity for further wordplay. "Stamina tests already? Shouldn't we at least have dinner first?" A younger warrior in the background coughed loudly, struggling to remain professional. Zilla glared in her direction again, then returned her penetrating gaze to Jack. "You humans joke incessantly," she accused, stepping closer again. "Is this humor a defense mechanism?" Jack shrugged lightly. "Oh, absolutely. Humor, caffeine, sarcasm, take your pick." The commander nodded thoughtfully, her hands returning to their careful exploration of his body. Jack grimaced slightly, his voice teasing. "Commander, I appreciate the thoroughness, but I'm starting to think your hatred of males isn't quite as advertised." She hesitated, fingers lingering slightly longer on his chest before pulling away abruptly. Her voice sharpened, almost defensive. "We Zelvarians have evolved beyond primitive attraction." Jack laughed softly, eyes sparkling mischievously. Then congratulations on your perfect poker face, because you're definitely sending some mixed signals. Zilla stared, clearly conflicted. Finally, she straightened decisively, eyes hardening. Silence! Your primitive misconceptions are irrelevant. We have protocols to follow. Remove your clothing. Jack's eyes widened comically, his smirk faltering for the first time. Protocols? This escalated quickly. Her face softened momentarily, embarrassment flickering briefly across her usually severe expression. To examine thoroughly we must. Jack held up a hand, grinning uneasily. Look, Commander, I'm flattered but also deeply confused. You keep saying scientific, but you're blushing like you're at an intergalactic bachelor party. Zilla visibly struggled, purple blush deepening significantly. The tension snapped as the younger warrior blurted out impulsively. Commander, perhaps we should just admit males trigger unexpected biological responses? Jack chuckled triumphantly, unable to resist teasing further. Biological responses, huh? Is that Zelvarian for you're secretly into me? Zilla's authoritative aura crumbled slightly as she sighed deeply, frustration mixed with amusement in her voice. Human, your incessant chatter is simultaneously infuriating and strangely charming. Jack beamed. Yeah, I've been told my irritating charm grows on people. Like mold. She shook her head slowly, exasperated but smiling despite herself. Enough. Our examination will continue later. Jack winked playfully. Looking forward to it, Commander. Though maybe next time, warn me before the stripping part. She quickly exited the room, barely concealing her embarrassment. Left alone with the guards, Jack shrugged helplessly, laughing awkwardly. Well, ladies, was it good for you too? One warrior broke her strict facade, leaning close, whispering conspiratorially. Just between us, human, you're what truly fascinates the Commander. Zelvarians despise males because you make us irrational. Jack nodded knowingly, smiling broadly. Don't worry. Human males specialize in irrationality. As the warrior departed, Jack relaxed slightly, now genuinely amused. He whispered to himself softly, humor dancing in his voice. Of all the places to crash land, I somehow stumbled onto an alien Amazon dating experiment. Jack leaned back, wondering idly if his rescue team might take their sweet time, just so he could enjoy seeing Commander Zilla squirm again. After all, he thought cheerfully, the scientific method had never been so entertaining, or so surprisingly hands-on. Jack sat alone in the sterile, brightly lit examination chamber, wondering vaguely how much humiliation could fit into one scientific encounter. He shifted nervously, silently debating whether escape was an option or if it'd only lead to more embarrassing forms of Zelvarian experimentation. Just as he decided he'd rather face alien curiosity than alien security, the door slid open smoothly, revealing Commander Zilla, her fierce expression softened by faint embarrassment. She cleared her throat awkwardly, stepping inside with forced dignity. Human, the Council requires additional data. We must continue our testing. Jack raised an eyebrow, feigning innocence. Commander, you Zelvarians sure are dedicated researchers. At this rate, you'll earn a doctorate in human anatomy. Her cheeks flushed deeply purple again. Your constant jesting is not helpful. This process is purely professional. Jack sighed dramatically, eyes sparkling mischievously. Of course, Commander. Entirely professional. Just two colleagues enjoying some intimate, scientific probing. Zilla stared at him for a long moment, as if debating whether to respond. Finally, she gestured sharply toward a nearby platform. Please disrobe and step onto the sensor pad. Jack chuckled nervously, eyeing the glowing pad warily. I gotta admit, your alien foreplay needs work. Usually there's at least dinner before you ask someone to strip. Her expression tightened, embarrassment fighting annoyance. It's merely standard protocol. Your primitive assumptions. He raised his hands defensively, grinning sheepishly. Right, primitive assumptions. Got it. Reluctantly, he began removing his shirt, feeling awkward under her intense gaze. Her eyes flickered briefly with something he couldn't quite identify. As he stood shirtless, Zilla moved forward, placing small sensors on his chest and arms. Her fingers trembled slightly against his skin, clearly uncomfortable. Jack couldn't resist teasing softly. "Commander, your touch is shaking. If this is disgust, it's strangely delicate." She pulled back instantly, composing herself quickly. "Do not misunderstand. Your physique merely presents unusual anomalies. Human muscle structure intrigues us." Jack's mouth curled into a teasing smirk. "Anomalies? Is that Zelvarian for impressively attractive?" She scowled lightly, quickly turning to her instruments. "Your confidence borders on arrogance, human." He laughed softly, shrugging. "Sorry. We humans compensate for insecurity by pretending we're irresistible." Zilla glanced sideways, mildly amused despite herself. "Fascinating psychological defense." Jack nodded cheerfully. "Yep. Self-deprecating humor keeps our fragile egos from collapsing." Suddenly, a voice crackled from a nearby intercom. "Commander, initiate tactile sensitivity tests immediately." Zilla hesitated visibly, eyes widening slightly in embarrassment. Jack immediately raised an eyebrow, half joking, half alarmed. "Tactile tests? That's a fancy way to say you'll be touching me again, isn't it?" Her cheeks darkened further. "It's purely scientific." Jack interrupted playfully. "Commander, you keep using that word. I'm starting to suspect scientific means something entirely different here." She stepped forward reluctantly, clearly uneasy as she placed her hands on his shoulders, gently pressing and moving downward along his arms. He laughed uneasily, tension mixing oddly with humor. "Well, this beats my usual first dates. Usually, there's awkward silence instead of awkward touching." Zilla paused momentarily, whispering sharply, "Your commentary complicates the procedure." Jack tilted his head slightly, smirking knowingly. "Interesting choice of words. Procedure or predicament?" She frowned deeply, stepping back again. "Human, your perception is troublesome. Your species seems adept at turning professional interactions into suggestive ones." Jack chuckled knowingly, eyes sparkling. "To be fair, your professional interactions could pass as flirting back home." She exhaled deeply, finally sighing with reluctant amusement. "Humans find humor in discomfort. A survival trait?" He grinned openly, relaxing somewhat. "Something like that. Humans have survived worse than awkward flirting from warrior women." Zilla stared at him in confusion. "Flirting? Explain." Jack raised an eyebrow incredulously. "Really? You honestly don't recognize it? Touching, awkward pauses, sudden blushes, Commander, that's textbook flirtation." She visibly bristled, though not with anger, simply embarrassment. "Impossible. Zelvarians do not flirt. Our emotional control." He laughed heartily, interrupting gently. "Commander, your emotional control slipped the minute you touched my chest. Face it, I'm irresistible." She shook her head slowly, smiling faintly despite herself. "You are a strange creature, human." Jack shrugged casually, smiling warmly. "Maybe. But you Zelvarians aren't exactly textbook aliens either. Usually aliens dissect humans, not blush around them." Zilla folded her arms awkwardly, trying unsuccessfully to appear stern. "Your wit is tiresome, yet curiously entertaining." He laughed softly. "I'll take it. Tiresome but entertaining pretty much sums me up." She hesitated visibly, finally admitting quietly, "Your presence is disrupting discipline here. My warriors are distracted. Your humor confuses them." Jack raised an eyebrow playfully. "Confuses or attracts?" Zilla looked away sharply, voice faint. "Both." Jack's grin widened further. "Commander, admitting it is half the battle. Welcome to human charm, awkward but effective." She smiled reluctantly, humor finally breaking through. "Charm is too strong a word. Irritating allure is perhaps closer." He laughed openly now, genuinely amused. "I'll take irritating allure. It's better than outright hostility." Zilla stepped closer again, softer this time, voice hesitant yet intrigued. "Tell me, human, do your species always use humor in uncomfortable situations?" Jack shrugged lightly. Mostly. Humor distracts from the terror of imminent death, or awkward alien exams. She tilted her head curiously, eyes studying him intently. Yet beneath humor, you hide genuine anxiety. Jack smiled sheepishly, nodding slightly. Busted. Sarcasm's my armor. Without it, I'm just another scared human. She regarded him thoughtfully, finally offering a gentle smile. Perhaps we are more alike than anticipated. Jack blinked, mock-shocked. Careful, Commander. That sounded suspiciously like an admission of attraction. Her blush returned full force, voice tight with embarrassment. You twist my words skillfully. Jack grinned warmly, eyes softening. Only because your species makes denial adorable. She shook her head gently, smiling despite herself. Human, you are exceedingly frustrating. Jack laughed softly, genuinely enjoying her discomfort. Thanks. It's part of my charm. Zilla stepped back slowly, clearly conflicted but visibly intrigued. Enough for now. Your humor complicates matters. Jack smirked playfully. I prefer enhances matters. She sighed deeply, finally turning away with an amused glare. We will continue later, human. Jack watched her leave, laughing softly to himself. I'll be waiting, Commander. Somehow, I think you'll find another excuse for hands-on research. As the door slid shut, Jack relaxed slightly, smiling broadly as he murmured softly, amused but slightly wary. At this rate, I'll either become Zelvara's most popular attraction or their biggest cultural scandal. Chuckling, he whispered to himself reassuringly. Either way, at least the alien Amazonian dating simulator is interesting. Jack paced slowly around the chamber, contemplating the unusual twist his life had taken. Being trapped on Zelvara, a planet filled with fierce warrior women who insisted they hated males, had somehow turned into a surreal comedy rather than the nightmare he'd first imagined. He was still lost in thought when the door hissed open, and Dr. Velura, the eccentric Zelvarian scientist with a disturbingly enthusiastic fascination for human biology, stepped briskly into the room. Ah, human Jack! She declared brightly, a playful gleam in her eyes. Commander Zilla has assigned me the task of conducting today's research. She feels compromised by your persistent charm. Jack raised an eyebrow, his lips curling into a sarcastic smile. Compromised, huh? That sounds suspiciously like she's embarrassed about blushing around me. Velura laughed openly, clearly amused rather than offended. Commander Zilla is renowned for her discipline. Seeing her rattled by a male has the warriors gossiping uncontrollably. Quite scandalous, actually. Jack chuckled, crossing his arms casually. Glad to know I'm making waves. I always dreamed of becoming infamous on a planet of Amazon warriors. Velura nodded eagerly, clearly intrigued. Indeed. Your charm is paradoxically annoying yet captivating, a scientific mystery that requires deeper analysis. Jack raised his hands defensively, eyes wary but playful. Hold on there, document whenever you Zelvarians mention deeper analysis. I start sweating nervously. Velura smirked mischievously, holding up a small instrument shaped suspiciously like a scanner, but with an unsettlingly suggestive design. Relax, human. Today's tests involve emotional and psychological responses. No invasive probing. Jack sighed exaggeratedly in relief, chuckling nervously. Thank goodness. After your last tests, I'm starting to develop probe-induced anxiety. Velura laughed softly, shaking her head. You humans have strange phobias. Now tell me, why does humor form such a critical part of your species' defense? Jack shrugged, smiling slightly. Honestly? Humor distracts us from our existential dread. Humans laugh because it's easier than panicking. She tilted her head thoughtfully. Fascinating. So your constant teasing of Commander Zilla is not simply flirting? Jack grinned slyly. Well, I wouldn't say it's entirely innocent. Commander Zilla is fun to tease. It's rare to see a warrior woman blush like a teenager. Velura smirked knowingly. Oh, she's definitely intrigued by you, human. Although she'll never admit it publicly. Attraction to males is considered deeply humiliating among our people. Jack chuckled knowingly, nodding slowly. Yeah, I gathered. But why exactly is attraction so taboo? She sighed lightly, lowering her voice conspiratorially. Long ago, our ancestors discovered males triggered uncontrolled emotional and biological reactions. Society banned males entirely to maintain order and discipline. Your arrival threatened centuries of carefully managed equilibrium. Jack raised an eyebrow, amused. So you're saying my mere presence is destabilizing an entire society? Valura smiled ruefully. Precisely. Zelvarians value self-control above all. You introduce chaos with your casual charm and sarcastic remarks. Jack laughed softly, feigning innocence. My bad. Didn't realize my sarcasm was a weapon of mass distraction. She smirked playfully. Indeed. Commander Zilla herself has privately expressed concern over her growing inability to resist your irritating allure. Jack's grin widened. Did she really call it irritating allure? That's practically a compliment. Valura chuckled warmly. On Zelvara, irritation often signals suppressed attraction. Jack raised an eyebrow teasingly. Explains why she seems constantly annoyed around me. Suddenly, Valura leaned closer, curiosity burning bright in her eyes. But tell me, human, are all males of your species so dangerously charismatic? Jack shrugged sheepishly, humor tinging his voice. Nah, most of us just pretend. Humans fake confidence until everyone believes it, including ourselves. She smiled knowingly. A clever survival strategy. But Commander Zilla genuinely struggles with you. She questions herself continuously. Why can't she resist the urge to be near you? Jack tilted his head thoughtfully, his expression softer. Maybe because beneath her warrior exterior, she's still a person, flawed, conflicted, and relatable. Just like humans. Valura blinked, surprised at his insight. Interesting. Perhaps we've underestimated the complexity of males. Jack laughed openly, amused. I guarantee we're simpler than you think. Humans mostly just want companionship, laughter, and snacks, not necessarily in that order. She chuckled lightly. Snacks? Is food truly such a universal obsession? Jack grinned playfully. Doc, humans built entire cultures around meals. Trust me, snacks are serious business. Valora shook her head slowly, fascinated. Extraordinary. Your species possesses a paradoxical mix of wisdom and immaturity. Perhaps Zelvarians can learn something valuable. Jack smirked mischievously. Careful, document admitting humans have redeeming qualities might get you banished. Valura smiled warmly. I'll risk it. You're intriguingly frustrating, human Jack. Jack laughed softly. I'm adding that to my resume. She tilted her head curiously, suddenly serious. Commander Zilla is deeply conflicted. She hides vulnerability behind discipline. You represent everything Zelvarians fear: chaos, attraction, emotional weakness. Jack sighed lightly, suddenly thoughtful. Funny thing about humans, we embrace chaos. Life's messy. Attraction, emotions, awkwardness. That's what makes living interesting. Valura smiled gently, nodding slowly. Perhaps your species understands something we've forgotten. Jack grinned openly. Humans aren't smarter, just more comfortable admitting we're a hot mess. She chuckled warmly, eyes amused. I'll inform Zilla her attraction isn't a flaw, merely evidence she's alive. Jack raised an eyebrow playfully. Careful, document. That might encourage her hands-on research. Valura smirked mischievously. Perhaps that's exactly what she needs. You humans do provide surprisingly effective therapy. Jack laughed openly, genuinely entertained. I prefer to call it humor-based emotional counseling. She smiled warmly. Call it whatever you wish. Zelvarians haven't laughed genuinely in generations, until you. Jack's expression softened sincerely. Maybe your society needs more laughter and less perfection. Valura tilted her head thoughtfully, nodding slowly. You are wise for a species that specializes in immaturity. Jack chuckled gently, shrugging lightly. Sometimes wisdom wears a goofy disguise. She stepped back, clearly satisfied. Enough for today, human. You've provided valuable insights. Jack smiled teasingly. Glad to help. Let Commander Zilla know I'm available whenever she needs further distraction. Velura grinned knowingly. I'm sure she'll find another excuse for your company soon. As she left, Jack relaxed slightly, laughing softly to himself. Somehow, he'd become Zelvara's resident expert in emotional chaos. Chuckling warmly, he whispered to himself. Not bad for a guy whose greatest achievement back home was winning office karaoke night. Jack sat quietly, watching the blinking signal indicator on the wall. Finally, after days of awkward exams and suspiciously tender scientific procedures, his ship's distress beacon had synced with a passing human patrol. Rescue was on its way. He should have felt nothing but relief, but instead, he found himself weirdly disappointed. A soft knock on the door broke his thoughts. Commander Zilla entered, unusually subdued. Gone was the clipped, commanding tone. Her posture was still straight, still proud, but something had shifted. She avoided eye contact for a beat before speaking. You are leaving, she said quietly. Jack stood, shrugging casually. Apparently, yes. Back to my boring job, malfunctioning equipment, and people who don't try to skin my abs under the guise of research. She looked down, lips tight. This interaction has disrupted more than our research protocols. He smirked, stepping closer. You're telling me. I think your entire warrior caste is going through an intergalactic identity crisis. I'd apologize, but I'm kind of flattered. Her eyes met his, conflicted and stormy. You've mocked me, confused me, irritated me, and yet I find your presence difficult to reject. Jack smiled softly. Careful, Commander. That almost sounded like an emotion. She hesitated. It is not weakness to acknowledge attraction. You taught me that. He blinked. Wow. Either that's personal growth or I've caused irreversible cultural damage. Zilla stepped forward, more composed now. Before you go, there is a final test. One I must conduct personally. Jack raised an eyebrow, suspicious but amused. Final test? Look, if this involves removing more clothes, I need a written waiver this time. Her lip twitched, nearly a smile. No. No scans. No probes. Just contact. Jack blinked, surprised. Wait, like actual voluntary touching? Without a science excuse? She nodded slowly. I must determine if what I feel is truly biology, or something deeper. He placed a hand over his chest, mock dramatic. Commander, are you saying you want to hold hands? Her eyes narrowed slightly. Mockery again. He chuckled. Sorry. Force of habit. She hesitated for a beat, then reached for his hand. Her grip was strong, steady, but there was a tenderness that hadn't been there before. No data collection. No excuses. Just a quiet, unspoken understanding. Jack let it happen. A voice crackled through the intercom. Human distress signal confirmed. Extraction in 10 minutes. Zilla let go, just as calmly. Then this is goodbye. Jack exhaled slowly. Yeah. Guess it is. She looked away, masking emotion behind duty again. You've left an impression. He smirked. So I'm more than a mildly amusing specimen? Her voice softened. You are complicated. He chuckled. Flawed but charming. It's the human brand. A second voice cut in over the intercom, this time from a flustered Zelvarian officer. Commander, the barracks are reporting unrest. Several warriors are refusing training schedules. They've started writing poetry. Jack blinked. Did she just say poetry? Zilla closed her eyes, mortified. Yes. They're emotionally compromised. Jack burst out laughing. I break into a warrior society and accidentally start an alien rom-com revolution. Classic me. Zilla groaned, but there was warmth behind it. We'll recover. Eventually. He tilted his head. Maybe don't suppress emotions so hard next time. Trust me, laughing through a crisis builds character. She studied him one last time. Perhaps, your chaos is not entirely unwelcome. He smiled. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me after multiple unauthorized physical exams. They stood in silence for a moment. Then, almost reluctantly, she handed him a small data chip. My private communication code. For future diplomacy. Jack accepted it, eyebrows raised. Commander. Are you asking me out, intergalactically? Only if further study becomes necessary. He grinned wide. Study, huh? So we're sticking with the science excuse. She allowed herself a rare, genuine smile. It keeps things organized. The intercom chirped again. Extraction team entering atmosphere. Jack gave a lazy salute. Well, duty calls. Try not to probe the next guy too hard. Zilla's tone dropped into familiar command mode, but her eyes were soft. You were unlike anything we prepared for. Jack turned, flashing a final grin. That's humanity for you. Full of surprises. And apparently poetic side effects. As he walked toward the docking zone, he heard one last thing from her, spoken quietly, but clearly. Goodbye, Jack. He paused, glanced over his shoulder, winked. See you around, Commander. Maybe next time, I'll do the probing. She rolled her eyes, but didn't hide the smirk. 10 minutes later, Jack's ship lifted off, leaving behind a planet that would never quite be the same. Warrior women now whispered about emotions. Secret poetry circles formed in quiet corners of barracks. And Commander Zilla found herself staring at her comms console far too often, waiting for a message that hadn't come yet. And somewhere in space, Jack leaned back in his chair, sipping lukewarm coffee and grinning to himself. He whispered, half to the stars, half to memory. I came, I crashed, I got scientifically manhandled, and still managed to change an alien civilization with bad jokes and body heat. He paused, chuckled, then muttered, Humanity, baby. We're built different.